And that's the reason why we're saying that in the next 3 or 5 years, we expect 2 to 3 percentage point dilution every year.
This isn't that big of a deal, given that TSMC has previously signaled that they will charge more for these chips, given that geographic location is part of the value they are providing customers. One thing that did occur to me, though, is an underappreciated reason why the Arizona fabs in particular are doable is because of how TSMC has been adopting the Intel model. I explained in an update last January, quote, TSMC started out as a foundry selling trailing-edge chips. The primary way of making money over the long run was to build a fab relatively cheaply using established equipment, and then run that fab for many years. Once all the equipment was depreciated, every chip produced was almost pure profit, even if the revenue on a per-chip basis was fairly low. It was Intel, on the other hand, that charged the highest prices for the fastest chips, and all of its business was on the leading edge, selling its own chips. That meant that the company would take down old fabs and repurpose as much equipment.
Okay, I mean, you know, I'm like an ordinary person. I just hear things and I attempt to understand them. So my instinct of comprehension with the snippet that I've just heard, that you've just heard, same amount, had been casually playing it in the background while working. But now that I'm a little more focused in driving to work and having that tonal familiarity with the individual, obviously from the East, who has the regional dialect, I'm guessing he's Japanese. Not that I couldn't guess that he was Chinese or Korean or Vietnamese or whatever in the East, and all the different locations that are all have a cohesion of languages not being English. I'll take this opportunity for a red light to contribute to my own content. And maybe, yes. So it seems that it takes a long time for the proportion of dilution to make its way through the entirety of the operation for the fabrication of the chips, whatever the chip set is, whatever the chip is, that it's more of an era and probably more influenced by an ecosystem of habits that weren't previously there, which aid as a catalyst to the dilution of the fabrications need to refurbish and need to sort of like work against the nature of the industry in order to an understanding of a frontier mentality to see what's next and then make a bet on it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, just means you have to have conversations that you wouldn't have to have as soon or as long, or there's just less autonomy over the parameters in which the conversation takes place, which is again its own set of placebo hang-ups, as my dad Oliver Scholem would say, hang-ups. Now it takes one to know one, sure, but it doesn't take one to be perpetually one to know one. That's also sure. That was a good ending. Okay, so if this is recording, great. I mean, if it's recording, thing. Having a little bit of problems with my car phone holder. Okay, great. Apparently it's working. Wonderful. I notice these guys don't have transcription automated. I don't know why. Everything on Spotify should have that feature. It's also marketable. It is something a user would pay for in order to have more searchability. These people are talking about how you can exploit airdrops through creating wallets as another form of sentiment, but the benefit from what I think he's talking about, which he doesn't mention, is that
activity in order to
near zero cost to create multiple identities on traditional internet applications. And I'd say it has become more scalable via L2s and new.
Creating a bunch of airdrop wallets to illustrate whatever faith in the program, in the crypto project, big deal. You're creating infrastructure too. You know, you are creating measurable infrastructure which has whatever benefits that has. This is a great road. So he's like, I'd like to see a better version of public sentiment. And okay, well, so what I attempted to just say is what this guy was just talking about.
Tremendously speeded up flow of information. We have examined what this flow has done to earlier forms and patterns, social forms, assumptions, political forms, everything.
Okay.
Let us now look forward.
This zero marginal cost discounts
more changes
the
we
thought
can
process
expect,
rate
what
of
other
making
impact
a new
it's
wallet
going to
or
have on us.
creating a new file.
Well,
They
I
always
think
talk
that
about the zero marginal cost in
queue
file creation because there's
is
no
in the
seemingly physical
situation
overhead to
programming
creating a
for
file
computers,
outside of the
because
hardware that
computers
you're
are
using.
information movers, and they enable you to move information at speeds.
My understanding of that is a little different.
Forecasting powers. And
My understanding of that
when you
is
have, coordinated the
you still have to
programs
physically
of
come
a
up
variety
with
of
the
computers and computer
strength to
structures
come up with the idea
in
to
our society,
do the
it'll be
new
possible
wallet or
to
do the new
access,
file. You still have to
in terms of
physically
immediate
get the
terms,
inspiration to
that,
even come up with how to
the,
utilize a tool that
diet
has zero marginal
television or
seemingly physical
movie
costs
or
using
radio
computers and
or
such, and thinking even.
print.
And then,
Is
just because you
constantly
can
saturated,
program
saturation
a
point, right
robot
Much of
software
you- you're
application
thinking of
to
correct
act on your
things,
behalf,
you're thinking of
No,
you
but
still have to
I'm
come up
thinking
with the ability for it
equilibrium.
to act
I'm
on your
thinking
behalf
when
correctly,
with the new
which
computer
is,
planning and so on,
that's
you
tough.
saturate with
That's a hard thing to do.
saturate with possession.
You need
And with
physical
pleasure.
resources, and that's
Then the question
what
of
should be
what is
factored
the
into
mix
what
in order to maintain
created the
equilibrium.
opportunity for the
That will
opportunity.
arise,
That
yes.
is
But
the
what I want
cost
to
of the
do
zero
is
marginal cost. How
project
many
to the
programmers,
people
how many
the
developers, how many
horrible,
programmers, who had the original idea,
image of
what was
what
required in deploying it, etc.,
this
etc., etc.
tendency
Back to what this guy's
is
saying. He's
unchecked.
saying
You're talking about
we need to have a
possibility.
metric
If unchecked,
in order, in
Unchecked.
addition
What
to
is it
this
going to
game
do?
Unchecked, it
metric
brainwashes. It
of
pulls
wallet
all
creation
rugs
for
out,
airdrop
from under
exploitation,
all existing structures.
which has the
Our
ancillary
system will go
byproduct of
high throughput layer ones,
providing
which has reduced the
information
cost
about
of transactions on many of these
We
blockchains
have
to
have
nearly
data
zero.
platforms in order
And
to
maybe you
figure
might
out what
ask,
they're going for.
isn't it also
They don't really
near
care
zero
about it, 'cause you have
cost to
implement
create
things
multiple?
successfully, and then everybody can have their own little market take on how to,
that,
utilize
there's no point
it.
in asking
Whatever,
what
it
piece
doesn't
of
matter.
legislation means.
It's just
It
the virtual
means what you want
economy.
it to mean, because it
So the best way to do that is to implement the Videosity
your law
token
means
of
literally,
non-fungible
don't
video
ask
index
what the poet
tokens
had in mind when he
because
wrote
they
this
have
poem.
a utility
Because
as well
you are
as
the ultimate driving
additional
force.
benefits,
And the poet,
and
what
it's
the
a
poet meant was
an
what the poet
incentivization
meant. He has
catalyst,
applied this artistic principle.
and it has
Identities on traditional internet applications. And I'd say yes, that's true for the most part. I can create multiple email addresses pretty easily. But the key difference here is that in the crypto world, we have very strong incentives for this type of behavior.
Yeah, Google doesn't give you money for opening a new Gmail account, unfortunately.
Exactly. And a lot of new tokens today actually bootstrap their circulating supply by doing something called an airdrop, where you're rewarding retroactively users of the protocol based on a predefined set of addresses. And so as long as people believe that these tokens could be valuable, there is a strong incentive for them to try to game the system by creating and transacting under many different identities. This is commonly known as airdrop farming.
Yeah, there's no reason that one person couldn't spin up hundreds of millions of addresses and just go wild, engaging in totally useless and inauthentic activity in order to try to maximize their likelihood of extracting as many rewards as possible. And what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, that we've had airdrops and yield farms and so on, there's been a profound professionalization of the efforts to pull out those rewards. People have gotten really, really, really good.
So naturally, as you move toward the liquidation of literacy,
That's what you've accomplished.
as a technology
Nothing.
in society, you automatically pull the rug out from under your existing legal structures, as you do from under your educational structure.
I talk about education, but what will it do to our current systems? This is something you know.
I think, though, apropos of the legal, notice of the how disturbed people are now about such things as death penalty, or about the attribution of guilt. As we know more and more about the conditions in which people live and grow, and so on, we become more and more worried about attributing any specific value and imposing any definite valuation upon their actions and motives. In primitive societies, I understand that what we would call criminals are regarded as pathetic, as sad mental cases, as the Eskimo says when a man performs a crime, how terrible it would be to feel like that. Not how awful it was to do that, but how terrible it would be.
Translation: a professionalization to get the rewards. Well, either a company wasn't doing it and then started doing it after somebody in the company was friends with somebody who was doing that, in or out of the company. So,
different thing from our written legal structure,
you know,
in which we simply apprise
not exactly a surprise that people would develop an ability, and some of those people would work in companies where it was of zero marginal cost to do.
And I want to make it really clear to anybody who thinks that it is a gigabrain take to say monthly active addresses is civil.
It's like a video game.
Yes, we know that. And if you have a better way to measure,
I'm all in. Yeah, I work at a company. Yeah, there's like, I don't know, 1,000 wallets, and we're utilizing our company's infrastructure to do this because it's basically saying two things. I'm going to get some fiat currency, and I'm endorsing this new method for getting fiat currency. That's all that it is. And when they, you know, I just find like people don't go deep enough on these podcasts in a way that makes sense to me. And that I find irritating. You know, I'll be honest.
Follow the contours of information and knowledge movement in the entire community. The community becomes your subject. I suggest, therefore, in the future that the real subjects of university study or school study will be the media themselves. You will have to understand their dynamics.
Yes, I know that. You know that. And you're introducing this term, syllable, which sounds like some kind of porn term from a Venetian snare song. But it's like, okay, it seems like we know that everyone knows what's happening. And so we're utilizing this method that they mentioned at the start of the show that I'm not going to go to because the list I've already done it. I may be wrong, but I'm never in doubt. That it is an important metric, the amount of crypto wallets out there, to gauge crypto as a, you know, Mary Meeker style end of the season, maybe, you know, like winding down and taking stock of what are the trends of this year before the year is over that we noticed. And so now he's going to say, like, you know, if you have a better way, we'd love to hear it, because we know everyone's using the same one piece of information in our nascent attempt to get institutional investment. He didn't say institutional investment. He didn't say nascent. He's just saying he doesn't know anything else, and he'd love to because he's thirsty for it. And so it's like, yeah, well, it's not going to only be whatever it is everyone thinks it's going to be who's having the conversation about what it even is. Most of these bros are just going to be like, hey, it's video games. That's what will be the microtransactions. We'll turn the reputation around about microtransactions. We'll introduce some incentive for reputation capital. They never said that. That is what's going to have to happen, though, is that you're going to have people out there that know shit, and it's going to be all people in all subjects. They will get an alert once they sign up for the fucking wallet, in this case for non-fungible video index tokens, on a non-existent service called Videosity. And its service is just a context layer on video, and it's agnostic to streaming platforms. So why would they do this? Well, why did Musi work? How could Musi work? Because YouTube is just infringement. It's literally like, hey, you're mad because I stole this before you. So YouTube comes up with Content ID in order to handle the cease and desist at the network scale. You know, when you scale big, you also scale big with everything else, and one of them is going to be lawsuits. So the cease and desist copyright infringement, probably the most common thing on the internet, due to the fact that the internet is supposed to copy anything from... That's the whole point of the internet. Copying documents to send them multiple places at the same time from one place. That's from the get-go it's been doing that. It's just richer and richer formats and files. And that's, everyone knows this. It's like Coca-Cola. It's the same can of Coke. It's that Andy Warhol quote. It's literally what the internet is. Everyone knows what they're copying, even if they never have articulated or even consciously been aware of it. Unconsciously, that's what's happening. They're working remotely. They make an email. They send an email. That's a copy of the fucking email. Same fucking shit. Now it's just video. you know, and then it'll be like other subcategories of various dynamics of video playback. They will introduce a Z layer to the playback rather than just an XY. X being the timeline, Y and X being the screen resolution. That's it. There's no Z. I'm introducing a Z into the 2D environment to make it a simulated 3D environment. By having a layer on top of what you're watching that you can turn off or on, powered by AI, powered by people who made the AI, powered by fucking committees which are, I guess, composed of both AI and people, money, and decentralized autonomous organizations, which were just created by people so that software could just be like, what did I say again? The Socratic irony, or the Socratic contribution to the dialectic, according to McLuhan. And I'm just quoting that like a little child. I barely know what dialectic means, except I know that it probably just means talking and remembering in some format, one's brain or an external source.
He makes a conspicuous and spectacular retreat from it.
Yes.
All that shit twice.
Our only salvation will be integrated.
Okay, I'm supposed to go to Bird's Hill, so I'm going to Bird's Hill. Hooray for me.
I must go into the down upon this new school.
We regard the very people say it regarded as traumatic.
Moreover, this what is it?
Non-fungible video index tokens would be a great public metric because the incentive is for the incentive, which will more than likely be gamed, but the incentive is, I think, persuasive enough to maintain because it becomes like your eBay score, where it's like, you're not going to do practical jokes on your eBay score if you're really serious about the money that you get from eBay. So with that said, people will still ironically categorize things. But
using public data, that's verifiable by everyone or that is easy to trust.
And so it's at an all-time high of 27 million. And so, the numbers do kind of
hit us off.
Sure. For many years in the past, we've been mostly focused on building the infrastructure to make all of this work. And so there really wasn't that big of a market for users of these crypto-based applications. But I think in 2024, we really did hit a tipping point with infrastructure improvements. These blockchains are becoming more and more accessible. They're cheaper to use. And as a result, we're starting to see applications come online. And now that we have these applications, I think it's really starting to come to life, and I think in the years to come, this will be an increasingly important question.
Yeah, I think that's right, because beforehand, the technology was still coming together, and in many cases, it is still coming together, but we're actually beginning to see some applications, and that's something that if you haven't been paying attention to crypto, you might not realize.
Totally. And I think the results speak for themselves, right? Active addresses across all of the blockchains that we track hit an all-time...
become so much part of the overall society. You cannot have economics.
And this process of merging everything will be completed.
Yes. Now, merging doesn't mean destruction. It shouldn't. It doesn't in any sense mean destruction any more than the dialogue among congenial members of a family and so on means destruction of individual identity.
Neither you nor I, right here, I don't think could very well, because even you and I sort of fail quite to grasp the total political implications of a society in which a society whose principal purpose is the flowering of each individual's potentialities.
Yes.
The principal economic activity of a society will be that. It is terribly difficult to envisage a political framework in which such a society would operate.
You see, here is a fake problem.